So for me, ikigai is like an engine, main engine. It's a source of the motivation, source of driving yourself. And then kintsugi is like a mechanic. It's used when the Utsuwa is once broken, but it's repaired with some gold and then attached to the broken part. And then Utsuwa is like the frame or chassis. It's the main part of the automotive.
My guest today is Shigeki Nishimura, an author and a global leadership thinker who has spent decades working at the intersection of Japanese precision and German efficiency. In January of 2026, Germany's leading weekly newspaper, Die Zeit, featured his work with the headline, Nishimura teaches his compatriots what they can learn from the Germans. Work less, achieve more. With over 30 years of experience in the semiconductor industry and more than a decade in automotive, he has led multicultural teams through high-pressure environments where quality, speed, and trust all mattered. He has worked closely with Japanese headquarters and European subsidiaries, helping bridge very different ways of thinking about work. After stepping away from the corporate world last summer, he now serves as a consultant specializing in cross-cultural leadership and organizational development. Today, he travels the world sharing the concept of Utsuwa, teaching leaders how to expand their inner capacity. Welcome to the podcast, Shige.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. We met in November last year, along with Kiki, who was a guest on the previous episode of this podcast, and we all met in Okinawa. I experienced a taste of the digital nomad lifestyle, and I met you, and I quickly discovered that you had been living in Germany for almost 2 decades, and that you're an author, a best-selling one, in fact. So we might start with Germany. What moved you to live in Germany?
Yeah, actually, I was working for a Japanese company, and that company had European subsidiaries. I was working in the office as an engineer, sales, as well as marketer, and also the head of the office.
I see. And almost 20 years, so I think 18 years. So how was the lifestyle for you, and how is your German?
That's a good question. So my lifestyle in Germany is like not to live in the foreign country, because I lived in Düsseldorf in Germany, where there are many Japanese people, and also we have a big Japanese community. It was very convenient for me to live there. This is the first point. That's why, and also, of course, I was working there with a European customer, but not so many German customers. That's why my German was not so improved. So my German level is like a survival German level. I could survive somehow, but not fluent.
I see. Well, your English is pretty good. So where did you learn English?
Oh, good question. Of course, most of all Japanese learn the English, at least from the junior high school. However, most of Japanese cannot speak English because we put more importance on the grammar and writing and reading, not for speaking. That's why my English speaking level was improved since I started work. And at that time, I was assigned for developing the product for European customer. That's why I had to speak English.
Okay, so did you speak English more often in Germany than German?
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. So now you're in Auckland and you seem to travel a bit. Are you still based in Germany, or where are you based now, really?
Yeah, that's also a good question. Actually, I already left Germany because last summer I left the company, and then now I'm independent. So I could live anywhere in the world for the moment because I'm currently working mainly online. It's like a digital nomad style. However, next month in March, I will go back to Japan, and then I will then finally fix the place in Japan. So I will be based on the Japan in near future.
And any idea where you will live in Japan?
That's also the good question. Many people or many friends ask me. Yeah, most probably not in the city side, more in the countryside. So maybe Nick, the Nagano prefecture, the center of the main island. Yeah, that would be the one of the candidate.
Sounds good. I'll probably be close there when I go to Japan in May, so I might try and catch up with you.
Yeah, sounds good. Please contact me.
I will. Okay, so in addition to living in Germany for almost 20 years, you've sold quite a few books, over 100,000 copies, in fact. So, what do you write about?
Yeah, actually, I wrote the two books. First book is about the working efficiency, and then second book is about leadership. My first book is to introduce efficient working style of Germans to Japan, because from my experience to work in Germany, I learned a lot to work with a high productivity from my German colleagues. For example, they clean up the desk every evening before they go home. That actually leads to their higher productivity because that avoid the wasting time to start something next morning also. And such a small tips are written in my book.
And the book title is The Incredible German Way of Working.
Yes.
And so, what language is that published in?
So far only in Japanese language. However, translation version for Thailand language, and also the German is ongoing.
Thai. Wow. Any chance of it being published in English?
Yeah, that's what I also would like to, but I'm currently waiting for the request from the any English book publisher.
I see. Well, I can relate to that habit or ritual of cleaning your desk. I know when my desk gets messy, I feel a little bit stressed. And I usually clean my desk before recording a podcast so I feel grounded and clear. Well, it almost sounds like a little bit of a Kaizen habit.
Yeah, exactly. So Kaizen habit means there's no radical changes, but some small step improvement. So continuous improvement. Yeah, such kind of the fundamental way is the source or the importance of the German efficient way of the working.
Well, it sounds good. Now, your current work involves publishing, lecturing, training with the aim of promoting true work style reform, perhaps influenced by your experience in Germany. So, what is true work style reform?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Japanese worker is, I think, famous for overwork. I mean, the word of karoshi means you work too much and then you may come to the sudden death. And then in Japanese company, even nowadays, a lot of people doing the overtime working. And yeah, of course, one reason is too much work for each people, each employee. But on the other hand, I see there's a lot of space to improve it. The cleaning up the desk is one example. Another example is the very, very long meeting time and then so many meetings. I think there are lots of room for improvement for such things.
I think so. I think many people who have long meetings would agree with you. So, at the heart of your philosophy related to work style reform and perhaps life in general is the concept of Utsuwa. So, what is an Utsuwa?
Before I talked about Utsuwa, let me talk about the basic concept of my introduction to my working style. So most of the Japanese people, working is the center of the life. So working equal life, kind of these things. But I want to change such a mentality or such a lifestyle to the working for life. Means working is just part of your life. So that's why I need to change completely the working culture in Japan. And then in order to introduce the new concept to Japanese workers or employees, I introduced the metaphor of Utsuwa. Yeah, that's the one background.
I see. That's helpful. Actually, just before you explain Utsuwa, I had an interview with someone else who's Japanese and worked in the corporate world. And recently in Australia, we passed a law. Basically, it involved the right to disconnect for employees after work hours. So, after work hours, employers legally can't demand that employees respond to emails after work hours. So we have this clear cutoff of work. We're not checking emails after work. And yes, my guest was quite surprised, saying, don't you want to work after you've finished work? Or don't Australians want to work after they've finished work? And I'm saying, well, no, not really. So, yes, Japanese tend to overwork. And even he felt that his approach to work was fairly modern and involved, having work and life balance. But he still felt it was reasonable to check emails after working hours. So I guess your work involves maybe that idea of having space or capacity. So yeah, do you want to explain what Utsuwa is?
Yes, Utsuwa literally means vessel, but the vessel is not like a factory-made vessel. It's like a homemade or a craftsman-made clay vessel. And Japan is famous for tea ceremony. And then for the traditional tea ceremony, such a clay vessel is used. Maybe you can imagine that.
Yeah, I shared with you earlier, my father makes pottery, shinoyaki pottery, traditional Japanese pottery, and he specialized in machajawa. And what is interesting is how in tea ceremony they use a bowl, quite a large bowl, rather than a small cup. And that's a fascinating aspect. It's like, oh, why is the vessel or container so large in tea ceremony when really you're only drinking 3 sips? So that's probably tied to the philosophy you're going to share with us.
Yes, that's exactly the point. If you hold the Utsuwa, it's heavy. That means it's very stable. And then even if it's a large capacity, we don't fill up the tea. There are always lots of spaces. That is, we say, yohaku. That means a kind of margin or extra space. So as a metaphor, Utsuwa shows some kind of the margin or extra space would be also necessary for our life.
It is fascinating. Japanese have other concepts related to yohaku. So I think the general idea of ma and then yutori, and they all have this emphasis on room or space, which I think gives us comfort, freedom, and the capacity to be present.
Wow, Nick, you understand our Japanese culture more than most of Japanese.
Well, I lived in Japan for a while, and I meet people like you, so I always learn a lot. Oh, actually, I'd like to quote you. So you describe it as the earthen vessel of the
Mhm.
human soul. So would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, compared to like let's imagine some kind of steel vessel or a factory
Mm-hmm.
made vessel. It's feel like a cold and not so. We don't feel any emotion to that. But such a clay-made vessel or Utsuwa, it's kind of warm, and we also feel kind of the emotion which is coming from the craftsman-made style of the vessel. That's the differences.
Yes, I think you're right.
Mm-hmm.
When I used to look at my father-in-law's pieces, it was almost his flow was captured in the clay, and you felt this human connection or almost connected to nature. Or you understood, this machajawan, this bowl, clearly it comes from nature, like the elements of nature, clay, water, it's been fired. But yeah, I think when we just get a regular cup, it lacks that emotional connection.
Yes, I agree.
That's also one of the important parts of tea ceremony is the guest or the host will choose a machajawan or a vessel or utsuwa for their guest based on maybe their personality. And then during the tea ceremony, the guest will actually take time to look at the machajawan and appreciate its design and texture. So a lot of effort goes into choosing the machajawan for tea ceremony, and then the guest will appreciate the host's care in choosing that. And so this is the beauty of Japanese culture, like the emphasis on presence, but also appreciation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also I think respect for the individuals. So each of the people has their own characteristic. So according to that, we should select our own Utsuwa. That's the thinking behind.
Yeah, I love it. And you've basically taken this idea of Utsuwa, which is this physical container, vessel, and you see it as a philosophy. And you describe it as the missing third element of Japanese philosophy, connecting it to the concepts of ikigai and kintsugi. So, would you like to touch on that?
Yeah, I also introduced a new metaphor. Think about the car or vehicle, because I was working for the automotive industry for a long time. So for me, ikigai is like an engine, main engine. It's a source of the motivation, source of driving yourself. And then kintsugi is like a mechanic. Kintsugi is used when the utsuwa is once broken, but it's repaired with some gold and then attached to the broken part. It's like a mechanic. And then utsuwa is like the frame or chassis. So it's kind of the main part of the automotive. That's why, depend on the chassis, Utsuwa, your capacity will be decided, or the size of engine is decided. That's the idea behind.
I love it. That's a good metaphor. You also write, we have tools for purpose, ikigai, obviously, and repair, kintsugi, but we lack the tool for capacity. And I think this emphasis really makes sense in a world where we're encouraged to buy more. We're encouraged to be more, be the best version of yourself. And success is often equated to material success, having more than one car, having more than one home. And we're always pushing ourselves to be more or have more. So I did have the question, is this the reason we break? Is this the reason why people are burning out?
Yes, sometimes, yeah, kintsugi is necessary when the Utsuwa is broken. But I personally think it's a kind of necessary process for people to grow up or improvement. The reason is that as far as you stay only in your comfortable zone or comfort zone, you cannot improve yourself. So sometimes you need a new challenges, and then you bring yourself to the edge of your limit. and then even they expand your limit. In that case, sometimes it's kind of the broken of the Utsuwa, but you can always repair it. So before you go real burnout, I would recommend to make a kintsugi. Yeah. Then you can make a better or more capable person. That's the idea.
I like that idea. And I think you're right. In our life, if we overcome adversity or have some form of trauma, it can make us understand, I guess, the deeper meaning of life. We get a stronger sense of identity. We understand we're capable of more. And maybe despite reaching a breaking point, we do recover. And then we're a fuller, stronger person. But I guess we don't want to do that too often, or we don't want to be in a constant state of stress.
That's right. That's why you need a yohaku, extra space.
Yeah, I like it. I like space, and I'm really trying to embrace more space in my life. And I think it's quite hard to balance ambition and space. Ambition usually, or it's always future focused. You're sort of driving and you want to get to the future quite quickly. But I think this idea of Utsuwa and capacity grounds you to the present. Would I be correct?
Yes and no. Actually, to determine your Utsuwa size, you need your life purpose, like your life mission or life vision. So, I mean, the precondition of fixing the size of the Utsuwa, you need to define your life mission first. That's my idea. Yeah.
Can you go into that a bit deeper? My life mission?
Yes, for example, my previous life mission was I'm going to be a bridge between Germany and Japan. This was my life mission. When I set my life mission, I had no idea what kind of action I should do. But in the end, now I published my book in Japan. And then also now German newspaper, the site, interviewed me. And then it's on the German newspaper. So it's like a kind of the bridge between Germany and Japan. So always your mission first, and then your act is next. And then eventually your Utsuwa, its size is determined. If your Utsuwa size is not big enough compared to your mission, maybe you have to make your Utsuwa larger.
I see. That makes sense. So if we do decide to have a life mission, we must also have the capacity to pursue it. And you're not saying one life mission, are you? You're saying we can have multiple missions during our life.
Yes, I would say you can upgrade your life mission. In my case, my previous life mission was to become a bridge between Germany and Japan. But now my current life mission is bring Japanese harmony to the world and then bring back the world's study to Japan. So it's kind of the bridge between Japan and the world.
I can relate to that. I guess I feel I'm a bridge, and I've often been told, "Oh, Nick, you're a bridge between Japanese culture and Western culture." I also see that as a role, and tied to that role, I guess goals or opportunities. So, writing a book or starting the podcast, etc. So often our mission is not really a goal; it's a role. For us, it's being a bridge. Yeah, it's interesting. You said you upgrade your mission, and maybe that's because of life experience, and maybe because, you've been broken a few times and recovered with kintsugi.
That's right.
Yeah, so interesting philosophy. Upgrade your mission as you learn and grow as a person. So you actually have a model of Utsuwa, and there are 3 pillars. So would you like to share those 3 pillars?
Okay, thank you very much for asking. So, as I already briefly explained, the one part is the groundness of Utsuwa is so heavy. So, you need some kind of the grounding part. That means you should be kind of stable person, even if nowadays, like a chaos world, you yourself should be stable. This is the first point. And then second point is the size of the Utsuwa. And then the size of Utsuwa reflects to your capability. So if you want to make more influence to the world, you need to make your Utsuwa size and become bigger. And this is the second part. And then lastly, the third part, by enlarging the Utsuwa size, you get more capacity inside the Utsuwa. But you should never fill up to your capacity because you should always keep some space, yohaku. Otherwise, you cannot challenge new things. You cannot get new knowledge, experience. That explains the Utsuwa concept.
Hey, it's Nick here, and I just wanted to touch base and tell you about my new book, A Year of Ikigai, a collection of short and simple daily reads over 365 days for easy understanding and integration of the Japanese concept of Ikigai. You can now pre-order this book through Amazon and Barnes & Noble. So with yohaku, is that what you translate to void?
Yeah, void, yes.
I have to think about it because we are using Utsuwa, essentially some form of pottery, to describe this metaphor. So it's, yeah, especially something like a tea bowl. I like this. So tea bowls are very grounded because they're low and wide, so very hard to knock over. They can hold a lot. And even when you have the tea in the matcha jawan, there's still there's still a void. There's still plenty. It's like 95% of it's still empty space. So we're touching on the importance of emptiness,
Mm-hmm.
and you write about this. You share with Utsuwa there is emptiness, and emptiness has a function. What is that function?
Good question. So, from the brain side, when take point of view, if you are full of the schedule, when you have some task, always some task to do, there's no space for new idea or innovation. And if you have yohaku or extra space, you have a time think nothing. So in Japan, we say botto suru. Botto suru means you do nothing and just watching maybe, I don't know, the blue sky. And then suddenly you come up with your new idea or innovative development and so on. Yeah, that's the kind of the function for the yohaku.
I mean, you tie it to ego. If we're always full, especially of ourself or our own ideas, then we cannot learn or hold anything else. And I think it happens in those moments when you're not thinking and you're not focused, when you are almost switched off and you're just observing something lightly, like the blue sky. You have this little realization or kizuki, maybe, a little epiphany, like, that problem I was working on, I think I have the solution now. It's like an angel taps on your shoulder and gives you an idea. So I think you're right. Emptiness, space, we need it. And when we don't have it, our mind is overstimulated. We're stressed.
I think such an empty space is more and more important because we have tons of information from the internet. And then also now we have a new technology like AI. And then in this time of the era, we need to keep intentionally our empty spaces. Otherwise, you are just flowing like a river, and you cannot control yourself.
Yes, you actually also write, we are trying to pour an ocean of complexity into a teacup. So it's like you're suggesting it, instead of being a teacup that we usually almost fill to the top, it's like you're saying, oh, be a machijawan, a traditional Japanese teacup where there's far more space, even after when you add the tea. And we have this room to relax, to enjoy life, to reflect, to consider others, to consider life. And even when you drink tea in the tea ceremony, you do it with so much presence and intention. And so maybe because you have that space, you can do that. But in the West, or not in the West, but generally, I think when we drink tea, we might do it in front of a computer, and then we start working, and then we forget the tea. And before we know it, the tea is cold or the coffee is cold. And then we have to heat it up in the microwave or something.
Yes, that's right.
So this is a reflection of life too. We get distracted, lose focus.
Yeah, so if you have ever entered to the chashitsu, it's a tea ceremony room, very, very small tea ceremony room. So what you can do is just drink tea, much tea, or talk with people inside the room. That's it. Nothing else.
I was going to say, even the design of the tea room is very simplistic, and there's usually only one or two pieces of decoration, a hanging scroll and kakejiku, and a very small decorative flower in a vase. Again, usually the scroll is chosen for the guest, and outside of that, everything else is very organic. Yeah, the tools are bamboo, and obviously the pottery is made from clay. So yeah, there's so much about Japanese culture that could be a metaphor for living a life with intention. You also wrote, Utsuwa encompasses the earthen quality, warmth, depth, and the ability to hold contradictions. It implies a low center of gravity. Can you talk about the power of contradictions?
So it's somehow related to the leadership style. Let's say the typical Western leadership style is a very strong leadership. So to lead the people to the defined goals. On the other hand, what I imagined about different leadership style is a so-called servant leadership. So that means the leader is not leading the member strongly, but the leader support each of the members. And then that means the leader respect each of the members' characteristic, and then find their strongness or weakness, and then they try to maximize their potential and then contribute to a team. That's why, such kind of characteristic is necessary, as I showed in Utsuwa metaphor.
Yeah, I like this idea of Utsuwa philosophy to help guide leaders, and you basically sum it up as moving away from this traditional strong leader type to spacious leader. So do you want to touch on that a bit more? What does it mean to be a spacious leader?
Yes. Actually, this kind of concept I already wrote in my second book, the leadership book. And then by learning different type of leadership in Japan and as well as in Germany, I came up with the idea of the kind of hybrid style leadership style. That means sometimes you need a strong leadership in case of the emergency or in case of the necessity of the revolution, depend on the company state. However, most of the case, you need to educate the people. You need to make up the system for more efficiency. Yeah, such kind of the different style of the leadership would be necessary even in one person. That's why you need much more capability or flexibility. Yeah, that's what I showed in Utsuwa metaphor. Does it make sense?
It does make sense. Even the idea of spacious leader, to me, it brings, they have space for others. You're approachable as a leader. Employees can approach you without fear, and you have more time. Like, you have more time for others. And as you said, the servant leadership approach.
Yes. And then in the end, such kind of leader get complete autonomy in the team. That means you don't need any kind of micromanagement. Because each member think by themselves. But on the other hand, as a team, it makes a harmony. So it's kind of the ideal team style or leadership style. That's why I wanted to introduce.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's creating, obviously, autonomy, but also agency. People can make their own decisions. And then I guess even authenticity when you have the space. So, very helpful model and almost counterintuitive to some degree, I guess, for Westerners. It's like, oh, fill up the space, do more, achieve more. I think it might take Westerners to hold back their initial impulse and think, okay, this idea of space.
Yeah, just imagine about your personal computer, so Windows or Mac. We have an OS and also the fixed memory size and also the application software. Most of people try to increase your application software by ignoring your hardware performance. Then in the end, memory is full and then your total performance is lower. I think in the most cases, people do that. That's why I recommend to always to keep the extra margin for your memory.
That's a good way to describe it. Totally makes sense.
Hmm.
So, somewhat related to that, you have a diagnostic tool to measure one's, I guess, personal Utsuwa with 4 questions. Would you like to share them?
You mean the way how to enlarge your Utsuwa?
Or the 4 questions to measure one's Utsuwa. So I think the first one is, can you hold success without becoming arrogant?
So by developing your Utsuwa concept, you might be promoted in the company, or you might be a higher position in the society. In the most of the case, people show that they are egoistic, and then nobody followed you. So you should be very careful on that point.
And then I think the second question is, can you hold failure without shattering?
I already explained about the kintsugi, some repair work for Utsuwa. So you should not stay in the one size the Utsuwa. You need to break the Utsuwa if it's necessary, and then they repair it. So by that, you need to enlarge your Utsuwa. However, in order to avoid the burnout, you should accept your failure or mistake and then try to repair it. Yeah, that's the second point.
I mean, on that, I guess we do break, but if we shattered, then it becomes much harder to repair ourselves, because shattering would suggest many, many broken pieces, much harder to repair. I guess we got to be careful to what degree we break.
Yes. Don't push yourself too hard. Maybe push yourself moderate.
The third question is interesting. You ask, can you hold someone else's immaturity without judging? And judging is a behavior we almost automatically do as soon as we meet others. But if someone is immature, then we're going to be very critical of them. So, how do we do this? How do we hold other people's immaturity?
Yeah, I think I know that this is a difficult question and diagnostic. However, without this, you cannot enlarge your Utsuwa because Utsuwa is always related to the other people around you. I mean that it's coming from the relationship with others. So if you exclude your judgment from the relationship, you could be grown up and then enlarge your Utsuwa. That's the idea behind.
And then the final one is, I think it's tied to discomfort. Can you sit with loneliness and uncertainty without panicking?
Yeah, that's also the challenging one. And so a reader is always alone and lonely because they need to make their decision by their own in the end. And then they need to take all of the responsibility. In that sense, every reader is lonely and alone. And then also our outside world is quite unstable right now. So day by day, the situation is changing. So it's like a storm. So even in such a storm, you could keep yourself and then you could judge by your own policy or by your own judgment. That would be the fourth point.
Nice. Yeah, there is a storm. I guess we don't want to have a storm in our teacup. Do you know that expression, a storm in a teacup?
Yeah.
So we don't want that in our Utsuwa. Yeah. And I guess Utsuwa gives us enough space. Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I'm really liking this metaphor of Utsuwa to encourage space and comfort and room, but also that it can break. And if it does break, you repair it. And from that, you grow. You might even be stronger and more appealing because obviously kintsugi has that very appealing aspect to it. And so you're relating it to leadership. Can you be a spacious leader? But you also have advice, general advice, I think, for anyone, how you can embrace and expand this concept of Utsuwa with, I guess, 3 guidelines or 3 pieces of advice. So would you like to share them?
Yes, exactly. I have 3 points to expanding your vessel or Utsuwa. So first one is the accept the cracks. This shows the imperfection of yourself. Some people cannot accept your cracks because of your pride. However, the large Utsuwa person accept any kind of the imperfection and admit it, and then even show to the people around you. Yeah, that is the one point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the second point is the lower the center. So when the stress, you are so nervous, and then you put your target very high. However, in such a case, grounding is necessary. So as I explained in the Utsuwa metaphor, Utsuwa shows you some kind of the heavy ground. You should be stable, and then you should be in the center, but on the lower position. That makes you some stable position. This is the second point. And then last but not least, the third point is practice the void, yohaku. So when I was the leader in Germany, I spent a lot of time or one-on-one meeting. So that means one-on-one talking with each of every employees. So such kind of the conversation, such kind of the attitude to understand the people is quite necessary to enlarge your Utsuwa. This is the third point.
Nice. I think that's really important. As a leader, or just as a person, you get to know others, connect and learn more about who they are. You never know what other people are going through.
Mm-hmm.
So we live in a very transactional world.
Yes.
We need to live in a more human world.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I guess our leaders should create this space for that. And I think you kind of refer to leaders as containers, and that the world needs containers or more containers. So what do you mean by that?
More containers. That means, of course, it's also related to the communication. Even think about the world pieces. We have a lots of war. So every war mainly happens from the kind of misunderstanding of the people. That's why, first of all, we need to understand the people as a world. And then the second point is we should show the large acceptance of the people who has a different idea or different mentality. Such kind of the things is showing the container. That's the idea behind.
Nice. I'd like to end with a quote. You write, "We don't need more information. We don't need more noise. We need people who can contain the complexity of this century without breaking. The world is seeking those who possess the earthen quality, resilient, warm, and spacious." And I think that's describing a human being.
Yeah, that's right. The most of people think to improve yourself, to grow up yourself, you need to get more information, you get more knowledge, you get more experience. Yeah, that is one side. But what I recommend is to not to add, but to remove some noises. Then you would know the real yourself, and then you can find any kind of the truth inside yourself.
Well, I think that's a perfect question to end with. What can you remove instead of add to make your life more meaningful?
Okay, again, keep your time, keep your extra time, yohaku. And then I also recommend things like the meditation. Yeah, there are lots of tools in the world.
Yeah, I also like journaling. I think journaling is very helpful. So I have space for journaling. And I also think what you touched on earlier, having meaningful conversations.
Hmm.
So having space for that. But we are living in as you said, a more challenging era with devices, social media, now AI,
Yes.
and the pursuit of more. But I think it's less is more, really.
Yes, that is the exact phrase. Yeah, word to show my thinking. Yeah, less is more.
Well, I love your theory or philosophy of Utsuwa. I'm glad we had the time and space to meet in Okinawa last November, Shige. And I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Yes, sure. Anytime.
So thank you for joining me today. How can our listeners reach out to you?
And actually, I have an official website. So maybe you can attach that URL on your podcast. Yeah.
Sure, we'll add that to the show notes. And I think you're also active on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn as well. Yes.
Awesome, Shige. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Mhm. Thank you, Nick. Thanks for inviting me. That was lots of fun to talk with you.
Likewise, my pleasure. We'll obviously talk again and hopefully meet in May this year.
Yeah, sure.
This episode of the Ikigai podcast was brought to you by my new book, A Year of Ikigai, which you can now pre-order from Amazon and Barnes & Noble.